You're listening to the Traffic and Conversion Show. I'm your host, Michelle Fernandez, and today is all about how to get off that content creation hamster wheel. So stay tuned. I don't know about you, but when I'm constantly feeling like I'm on this content creation hamster wheel, I'm always thinking of ways to stand out, be different, and provide new information. Are you the same? And honestly, when it comes to marketing, there are tried and true strategies. So unless there are new policy changes on platforms, there's really nothing new. So I feel like I'm always saying like the same things over and over. Do you ever feel this way in your industry? So what do I do instead? I create content on my social media when I know it's the shiz, right? Plus, I run ads to make sure that I am consistently showing up to my potential clients without having to be consistently on, right? There's no shame in the consistent game. In honesty, it just makes things so much easier. So here are a few ways to evaluate in order to get off that constant creation hamster wheel. Ready? All right, let's dive in. Number one, take a look at what's working and what's not. I'm always evaluating, right? And really look at if certain things that you are committing to are really worth it or not. You might be doing a weekly video or a weekly podcast or a weekly blog. And here's the thing, you may be following a coach and hearing things that are working for them. However, it may not work for you, but definitely test it out. However, when you take a look at your analytics, you might realize that another area is bringing you in the better results, right? The most results. Like, let's say it's your podcast is bringing you in more business than your actual weekly live video. Make sense? So take some time and really dive into not just who's getting the most engagement, because I've seen this before too, where it's like, well, we're getting a lot of comments on here, but are those comments actually turning into sales, right? So you need to kind of look at evaluating things as one step further and digging a little deeper each and every time. All right, second, take a look at ways that you can repurpose the content that you previously created. I've said this before, and I'm sure you've heard it, that 1 to 3% of people who actually follow you on social see your stuff, right? So it's okay if you post it again. And I actually went on a challenge the other day with someone I've been following for a while. It's an influencer, and he made a comment that he posts like 3 or 4 times a day. And my first thought was like, what? That's like crazy. I'm definitely on that constant hamster wheel, right? But then he went on to say that he just brings back stuff that he's already posted and no one even knows because not everyone is seeing it, right? So videos or podcasts can be turned into written blogs. That's another way that you can repurpose your content, because remember, we're looking at a couple of things. Number one, your search engine optimization. That's really going to help you having a blog, right? And it's also great for people who don't have the time to watch a video, or let's say hearing impaired, right? Or maybe they are just readers. And beyond that, think about how you can repurpose your existing material. Maybe it's putting together an ebook with transcripts of your podcast. Maybe it's bundling some of your videos together, right? And there are definitely ways to turn your written content into maybe like an audio, right? Or video content, and just kind of sprucing it up a little. Because remember, anytime you do something audio or video, it's really you, and you can put your inflection on it, and they can actually hear you, which I think is in video, like they could see you and relate to you so much better. So just remember that people learn in different formats. So it's great to have different ways for people to consume your content. All right, number 3, instead of creating from scratch all the time, look for ways to leverage what you've already created. Now, you could do this by creating a series where you highlight some of your best tips from, let's say, your past videos or blogs. You can create a montage video or a compilation of podcast highlights, right? Maybe you've interviewed a few people, right? All about the same topics. Well, maybe you can do kind of like a video, like an interview series of a podcast where you're showing the highlights of these different people talking about the same topic and their perspective on it. I think that's a great idea, right? Think about different tips that you have or something that you've learned from maybe your mastermind or something like that, that you could pile it together. Such a great idea, and it's already done. Okay, number 4, have other people create content for you. What? Ask your audience to, let's say, reply to a blog post or a video with their opinion or solutions to a problem that you know many people in your audience are experiencing. Listen, people love to be highlighted, okay? So no one's gonna say no to you. The other thing is that really, even though you are the authority and you are the one with the credibility, people kind of look at you like, oh, of course she can do it because she's XYZ, right? She could do this because, right? And they give their reasons. However, when they see somebody who is just like them, like not the influencer, not the authority, getting these results or having these things, people are more open to listening in. I remember I interviewed one of my clients. She actually asked me, she's like, would you mind if I go on your podcast with you? And I'm like, sure. She goes, because I always hear people looking for these results at like 7 figures. Like I got to this or I got to that. And she's like, you know what? And I'm not saying I don't want to get there, but I want people to see that these small milestones, these $10,000, okay, now I got to $20,000, right? Whatever that milestone is, and it makes them more relatable. So she wanted her voice to be heard so other people can get inspired, because there's for sure other people like her. Make sense? The other thing you could do is when you have video, whether you're doing a live video or podcast or something, think about who you can interview, right? Those are so much easier that you don't actually have to create the content. The guest on your show or on the video will do that for you, all right? Now, number 5 is take a break or go on a hiatus. And yes, I said it, take a break, right? It is totally okay to take a break from your publishing schedule to switch things up, right? And every time I say this, people are like, wait a minute, is that gonna mess up the algorithm? And maybe not, but we already know 1 to 3% of your people are seeing it anyway. So it's like, what percentage is that? How many people that is? Now, if you feel a little like, I don't wanna just walk away, right? Think about using some repurposed content, right? Or maybe the best of series. That's one thing that I did. Things got just crazy. Things were going on with the kids and the business and all these things. And I'm like, I don't have time to be recording the podcast, right? So what we did is we looked back and we said, okay, which were the best performing podcasts? Let's bring them back and just literally run the same episode again and call it the best of series, right? So that way it kind of kept the machine going, kept the engine running, while it allowed me to take that break, rethink of what I wanted to do, get creative and come up, right? So think about this. If you're still ramping up your business and you don't have a big audience waiting for that next post, then definitely take a break, right? Use your energy to get your creative juices flowing. It's a weird thing, the way our mind and our body works, but once we kind of take off that pressure, it's like, oh, like the sky is open. It's like, oh, right. It's like, oh my gosh, now I could be more creative because the pressure is not on. All right. So it allows you to think of different things that maybe you couldn't have thought of before, because you're like, I got to come up with something. It's like you're just staring at the flashing cursor on your screen, right? We don't want that to happen. So do what you need to do. All right. Number 6, content creation with co-conspirators. Okay. So if you feel stuck when it's time to create, consider hiring someone to help you co-create, right? And you could do this by hiring someone to help you write scripts, or even a ghostwriter to write blog posts. Have your social media manager come in and say, hey, can you help me out here? You can also hire someone to help you bring in bring life to older content or ideas that you never finished, right? So let's just say you're like, oh, I had this great idea, but I didn't really know which way to go with it. Or I don't know how to expand on it. That was my biggest issue in English, which is why English was never my strong suit. It was like when it came to writing like a 500-word essay, I was always like, I could say it in 2 sentences, right? I didn't know how to expand upon it. And so if you have this idea and you have someone on your team, or you have a copywriter that you can say, hey, can you take this idea? This is kind of what I want to talk about. This is like the main thing. Can you expand upon it and make it readable, right? And enjoyable? So people want to dive in and keep reading more. Just an idea. Okay, number 7, create an editorial calendar. This will save you from trying to come up with fresh ideas every week. Consider your marketing calendar and plan your content around your promotions. So what do I mean by this? This is crucial also to your success of your marketing campaign, right? So if you're going to launch a product or a program, or you have your lead magnet, it's like, what kind of content can you be putting in that will lead up to whatever you're doing? All right. So what kind of beliefs can you shift? What kind of objections can you overcome? If you're doing your market research properly, you are going to know what everybody's pain, struggles, dreams, and desires are, and what can you do to point those out, right? To make them realize that, oh, this is the girl, she really knows what she's talking about, and lead them up to it. Make sense? Okay. Number 8, batching your creation time. Okay. So notice how I didn't say batching your content, it's the creation time. This works well because it helps you get your content done. So you need to figure out what time of day works well for you. When are you fresh in your head? And I just saw a post the other day. It was talking about morning routine. And I'm like, here we go again, right? Everybody's saying, wake up, meditate for so long, read so much. Well, actually, he was a little bit opposite. He was saying he wakes up, and between, like, I think it was like, now I can't remember, 5:30 and 8, something like that. He's like, I am on in the morning, and that's when I get my most important tasks done, because I need to be that alert. Okay. So if you know you're more alert in the morning or more alert in the afternoon, wherever you're more creative, that's when you want to basically batch your time. Okay. And then you'll have a stash of content ready to publish, and you don't have to constantly come up with something new, right? So it could even be one of the things I also like to do, where you're talking about, like, where do I get the inspiration from? When you're looking at these things, think about, what are you doing on a daily basis? You're most likely reading, right? So with what you're reading, does anything come up for you? Could that be a batching content time where you're reading and you're like, oh my gosh, that would be such a great quote? Or, oh yeah, I went something through similar to that. And this is where I was before, this is where I came out, and how can I make this some of my content? Okay. So when you're reading, either on your phone or on a little notepad, like keep notes by it, or write in the book and say, okay, I could talk about this. And then now it's nice and fresh. Take a minute, either speak into the phone and say whatever you feel like you're saying, because then it's going to be so much easier for you. Same thing if you're watching a video or some sort of classes or tutorials in your mastermind. Like, when you're in these learning spaces, your mind just goes into this place where it's like you become more creative, you become more visionary. All right. You become in that mode where you're doing things to grow your business, and then kind of remember back to you, like, where you were before when you got here today. All those things come up, and it helps you make this beautiful content. All right. All right. So those are my tips to help you get off that content creation hamster wheel. I can't wait till you get off, and I can't wait till you find it much more enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed the show, and until next time, let's grow your business together.